Good afternoon, everyone. Okay, thank you for joining. Welcome to episode 36 in Key to Redemption in Our Hands. This is part 2. In the episode we began yesterday, and hopefully we can conclude it today, which is called Time to Disseminate Moshiach Everywhere. So yesterday, if you listen to yesterday's class, you'll understand the build-up of how the Rebbe built up to this particular moment, and this is the talk he gave on the 19th of Kislev in 57-52, in which, after we've already seen that the world is ready, in terms of the physical world is ready for the receiving, for the revelation of, the Ori of God Himself, the physical world stands ready. We learned also that the Jewish soul has been restored already to its pristine state. Like we discussed, the moon being equal to the sun, it's in this particular time that we move into the next phase, which is now via the Torah and through the Torah, and particularly through the inner part of the Torah, we are ready to reveal Moshiach everywhere in the world. In other words, the Rebbe turns every single piece of bringing Moshiach into a collective project. It's not something that just happens, with a spectacular revelation from above in which we are just bystanders. We take an active role in all these steps. So first in the refining the world, preparing for Mashiach throughout the exile. That's our work. And then stage by stage, and even including the dissemination of Mashiach's power. The truth of Mashiach, we need to activate it, as we've discussed many times, and each and every one of us have a little piece of Mashiach inside of us, and by us activating our own Mashiach, we help and we bring forth, and we take part in the revelation of the grand Moshiach in the world. So we're holding actually over here in chapter 3. In yesterday's talk, we've discussed how the three interpretations in Pada B'Shalom Nafshi, in the verse, in Psalm 55, where King David with David HaMelech speaks about the redemption of his soul, which is a very powerful verse, the redemption, you have redeemed in peace my soul, how it's interlaced and interwoven with, it has many dimensions. One of them we discussed is related, the way, in the order that we discussed it, is connected to the Alter Rebbe, Reb Shneur Zalman of Liadi, in his redemption, in which the entire teaching of Hasidism was given a license to be spread in the world, and it came about through an imprisonment and a release from prison from the first Chabad Rebbe. And when he said the verse Pada B'Shalom Nafshi, you've redeemed in peace my soul, that was number one. And then number two, the second interpretation of Pada B'Shalom. So in other words, according to that, the first interpretation, Pada B'Shalom Nafshi, is a redemption of Torah. It's the redemption of the deepest part of the Torah for it to be able to be communicated to the world. The second interpretation of Pada B'Shalom Nafshi is referring to the redemption of Moshiach's soul, whether in King David himself, who was redeemed from all of his enemies, the cornerstone of Moshiach, the foundation of Moshiach, or the entire Davidic kingdom, culminating in Moshiach himself, who has many battles to fight, and he too proclaims victory, that God came to his assistance, and Pada B'Shalom Nafshi, Hashem redeemed him in peace. And finally, the third interpretation was that this verse is being said on behalf of God himself, that Hashem says, I am redeemed from my imprisonment. And God says, whoever studies Torah, whoever is occupied in Torah and in mitzvot, and doing acts of kindness and generosity, and also is involved in praying with the community, which we know is the three pillars in which the world stands on. The pillar of prayer, which is service. The service of God can either mean sacrifices or prayer. The pillar of Torah, and the pillar of kindness. It's these three pillars. If one is occupied in these three things, then God says, I consider it as if they have redeemed me and my children from exile. So yesterday we were discussing, the Rebbe was discussing how these three interpretations are laced together to be really all one. And the way it works is as follows. Because the Baal Shem Tov, the founder of Hasidism, was told by Moshiach that the dissemination of the teachings of Hasidus will lead to the Geula, will lead to the redemption. If that's the case, so we understand that the Alter Rebbe's redemption on the 19th of Kislev in the year 1798 allowed for is a precursor for the Mashiach. So the Pada B'Shalem Nafshi that happened less than 250 years ago. The Pada B'Shalem Nafshi that happened then, what is it now? That's 2024, and that's 24 plus 2, 226 years ago. So the Pada B'Shalem Nafshi that happened then is an enabler and a precursor for the Pada B'Shalem Nafshi of Mashiach, allowing Mashiach to be able to burst forth from his concealment and from his constriction. He's being tied, suffering the suffering of the world, and yet cannot redeem the world until Chassidus is spread and paves the way for him. And then finally, once Mashiach is released from his imprisonment, he can redeem the Jewish people together with God from exile. So how we see these three are interlaced and interwoven. But on a deeper level, we learned yesterday, and I want to pick off where we learned yesterday, that the spreading of Hasidism is not only an introduction that enables, it's a necessity that we need to have one of the boxes we need to check off on the list in order for Mashiach to be able to come. And it's one of the last things that are necessary, the last avoda, because it only happens in the latter time of history. The general observance of mitzvahs and Torah and tshuva and repentance, which are all, items that we need in order for Mashiach to come. This was applicable throughout all of history. But the spreading of Hasidus, it was only available from the Baal Shem Tov and onward, and primarily from the Alter Rebbe in the last 200 and so years. So it's not only that this is an introduction to Mashiach, but this itself is Moshiach. This was the last teaching that we learned yesterday. Why? Because when Mashiach will come, what is going to characterize the redemption, the great and grand redemption? It's going to be characterized by a world of enlightenment, an amazing enlightened world. The knowledge of God will be revealed for everybody to perceive and know. And that is what Hasidism is. Hasidism is the teachings of the knowledge of Hashem. It's unlike the other parts of Torah, which is God's instructions for the world. Hasidism is the exploration of the divine. It comes to make man know the divine. It gives us an understanding in godliness, which is literally the occupation that's going to be when Moshiach is here already. So when we spread Hasidus, we're creating Moshiach in the world. We're beginning to create what's called Yamosa Mashiach. We create a Mashiach environment from the times of Mashiach. So it's already the beginning of Mashiach, the spreading of Hasidism, which leads us to the third thing. Not only does it allow Mashiach to come, but it takes God out of exile. Because once God's exile is the very idea that God is not seen in the world. He's hidden and obscured. And when Mashiach will come, what's going to be? God is going to be redeemed from exile, which means he's going to be revealed everywhere. Instead of the world concealing and hiding him, as we learned yesterday, it's going to be the total opposite. God is going to conceal the world within himself. The world will be so flooded with godly consciousness that we will hardly know that there is time and space, that there is a world, that we exist. We will be so overwhelmed with the overwhelming blessing of the divine reality. We will be saturated. We will be dipped in godliness. So comes out, since Hasidus, when we soak the world with Hasidus, which is divine knowledge, with the inner essence of Torah, which is the redemption of the 19th of Kislev, we are bringing both the redemption of Mashiach, and we are bringing the redemption of God, and we're bringing the redemption of God's children, the Jewish people, because the redemption of the Jewish people is that we can be close to God. See, the main difficulty of exile is not the persecution, is not sometimes the lack of livelihood or the poverty. It's not the shame or the the fact that the Jewish people have been insulted and disrespected. And of course, all that is not lovely. All that is part of the package of exile. But the real pain of exile is the separation between us and God. We don't feel him the way we should. We don't experience him. So in the time of Mashiach, when the Rambam says, Maimonides says, that what's gonna happen to Israel, to the Jewish people at that time, Lefikach yi Yisrael chachamim gedolim, that the Jewish people are going to be very wise. The yodim dvarim astumim, they're going to know the hidden secrets. So much so, v'yasigu das boiram. Maimonides says, crazy statement, that we are going to apprehend and know the mind of our Creator. There isn't any greater closeness than that. So it comes out that the ultimate of being close to God, like he borrows the term from the verse itself, Haya imadi, that they are with me, in that verse the whole talk is based on, Pada b'shalem nafshi, that they are with me, with God. There's no greater possibility of being with him than in the state where we know him. When we know him in the way we will know him when Mashiach comes out that the spreading of Hasidism is Moshiach on the highest level. In a sense, therefore, we can say that this channel in which we are teaching, I'm not saying only my channel, but in these channels that are teaching Hasidism, this is Moshiach. This is Moshiach's channel. Because here is where you can tap a little ray of futuristic Mashiach light. It's happening right now on this channel, because this is where we teach Hasidus. And on purpose that it should reach the four corners of the earth, everywhere, which is also something that only opened up in the last 30 years, from when the Rebbe spoke this talk. Around that time is when the internet opened up, and then YouTube and Facebook and all these various different means in which we can spread knowledge across the world. This is messianic, and this was all a preparation for the divine wisdom to be able to reach the whole world. It's all a continuation of the 19th of Kislev. Now we go on to chapter 3. Now he's going to take it and explain this and add such a powerful idea. And this is which I mentioned yesterday at the beginning of the class, but here is where we come to the crux of it. And he says, this that we say, that the coming of Moshiach is connected to, is very much, which is the concept of Pada b'shalem nafshi. That Pada b'shalem nafshi, which means that the redemption of Mashiach from him being locked. Because we know the soul of Mashiach is always ready to redeem the world. That when Mashiach cannot come redeem the world, that means that Mashiach is in prison. He's being held back. Pada b'shalem nafshi, as we said, King David says that on behalf of himself and on behalf of his grandson, Moshiach, and he says, you have redeemed my soul. So the redemption of Moshiach from his exile, we learned, is very much connected to the redemption of the Alter Rebbe, Reb Shneur Zalman of Lemna, which we know is really part of the Davidic dynasty, because the lineage of the Alter Rebbe is from King David. And this serves as the connector from King David to Moshiach Tzidkenu, to Moshiach himself, which is implying from all these talks the Rebbe is referring to himself. So there is a direct line now going through, but he's saying it not only in the literal sense, but also in the conceptual sense. The relationship of the Alter Rebbe's redemption of Pada b'shalem nafshi to Mashiach's redemption, Pada b'shalem of Mashiach, as the Rebbe calls it, David Malchus Mashiach, of King David, who is Mashiach, meaning the scoin of King David, the grandson of King David, that is Moshiach. It is connected. The two are deeply interwoven. That idea is explained in the latter half of the verse. Ki berabim haya imadi, because in the many he was with me, is not only another piece to the puzzle, but it actually adds insight and explanation of why the Pada b'shalem nafshi of the Alter Rebbe, which means the redemption of Hasidism, why that is Mashiach. Why? So we already spoke about that earlier, because it's divine knowledge. But now we're going to dig deeper And Moshiach is divine knowledge, the revelation of knowledge of Hashem being revealed in the world. And that brings the third partner in as well, which is God himself, into it as well, from being concealed to being revealed. That's God's redemption. But in addition to that, there's a very deep idea. And what's the idea? The idea is as follows. We've discussed in the earlier classes that in terms of level of soul, Moshiach is a Jewish king. That's what he is. He's a human being and he's a Jewish king. He's a grandson of King David. His kingship is in him as a human king is enclosed God as God being a king. God's kingship is dressed, enclosed in Moshiach, who is a physical human being, a Jewish king. So, what makes a person Jewish? That he has a Jewish soul. Now, the Jewish people had many leaders throughout and super leaders. From a simple, more, might say, material or physical or superficial, let's look, from a more external evaluation, to evaluate the differences of the various different leaders throughout Jewish history, beginning with Abraham, the first Jew, our patriarchs, and then Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, and then, of course, King David, and then you have people like Elijah the prophet, Eliyahu Navi, and then, of course, we have the great rabbis like Rabbeinu HaKadosh, the author of the Mishnah, and Rabbi Akiva, and others, the Maimonides, Rambam, Rashi, Baal Shem Tov, like all the Ari, the great mystics. These are all various different Jewish leaders throughout history. So from a more superficial approach, the way you judge the leaders, I don't mean judge, the way you evaluate their greatness is from their actions, what they've done. So you look at their contributions to the Jewish people and their contribution to the world in general. But from a more mystical perspective, the difference between these various leaders, world leaders, personalities, human beings that bring massive change to the world is not just an external difference of what they do for the world, but who they are. Who are they? What are they? So it is explained that the super leaders are deeper levels of the collective soul of Israel. What that means is like this. Every single Jew, man or woman, possesses a Jewish soul. But then there is the leader of the generation, of any given generation, is a soul that's called Neshama Koleles. He incorporates all souls. So the leader of a generation, who inspires the generation, who directs the generation, that's a super soul. It's called Neshama Koleles. Now, in soul itself, there is, in each and every one of us, we have a more external level of our Jewish soul. It's holy, it's our Jewish godly soul, but a more external level. It motivates more behavior. All of our holy behavior comes from this level of soul. Then there's a deeper level of soul, which is not meant to motivate behavior, but it's all about emotional experience. Our Jewish emotions, our holy, godly Jewish emotions, are stemming from a deeper element of soul, a higher dimension of soul. And then there is even a higher dimension of the soul, which is where Jewish intelligence comes from, Torah knowledge, the part of our being that has the capacity not just to feel God, but to know God in the mind, which is greater than feeling. And then deeper than that is even higher levels. The drive, the power of drive, what drives us with a limitless desire to do good in this world, which is sometimes exceeds our mind, our understanding, an energy that transcends even logic and understanding. We're driven by a drive in which we will not stop, with an endless devotion. That's even a higher level of soul. And then there is the deepest level of the Jewish soul, which is called, now these four levels that I discussed are translated in Hebrew as Nefesh, Ruach, Neshama, Chai. These are four levels of soul. We come to the fifth level of the soul, which is the highest level of the soul, called Yechida, which is the inner core of the soul. Yechida means unified with God. Yechida means singular. Yechida means she is singular, she is one and connected to Yachid, to Hashem Echad, to the singularity of God. That means on this level of soul, nothing exists but God. And she's a total recipient of that oneness. She's in a state of perfect attachment. Every single one of us has these dimensions of soul. Now, earlier in the Maimer, earlier in the earlier talks, earlier in these Key to Redemption classes, in a few of the earlier episodes, we learned that really these 5 levels of soul are not everything. Even the 5th level, the highest, deepest level, is not really the deepest, because that too is one of the names of the soul, which means it's still a projection of the soul. It's not the soul itself. A name is always a projection. Deeper than the projection is the essence of the soul itself. And that is not even, you can't give it any name. It's beyond the name. That's called Etzem HaNeshama, the essence of the soul. We, depending on every person on the level of how much they're able to open up their own soul, depending on how much they devote themselves to spiritual pursuit, they will merit a revelation of another part of their soul, a different dimension. When we say that when we ought to open up within ourselves the deepest core of our own soul, if we are to connect even higher than our Yechida, usually we say when someone is willing to give their life up, when someone makes a choice to even give their life, they're giving everything away to God, even their very life itself. Like, thank God we don't have those things happening to us today. But it was in a time when Jews were actually persecuted, sometimes had to face the sword and make a choice to either hold on to their Judaism or the Crusaders were forcing them by sword to have to accept Christianity, and Jews were willing to die. At that moment, you're in tune with your Yechida, which is your place of your soul where you're unified with God. A level where nothing exists to you other than God. But even that is not the deepest. The deepest is the essence of the soul that has no definition at all. It just is. On that level, a person is one with God. Not you're obsessed with the oneness, not you're receiving the oneness. You are one with Him. And that is the essence of the soul. And that's the Moshiach spark inside each and every one of us. When Moshiach will come, this spark will be revealed into our consciousness. We will be living 24/7 in this level of absolute oneness with God. So it's our own personal spark. But where is that spark being energized from? Where is it connecting to? How is it connecting to? Well, for that, going back to what we said earlier, that there's the various different personalities. There are the various different leaders of the Jewish people. And as we discussed, for instance, King David was a leader. It says that King David, he's the general soul of Israel, but he's the level called Nefesh, the lowest level of soul. He was the headquarters of that level of soul. Eliyahu Hanavi is the headquarters of the emotional level of soul, Ruach. The Moshe, the one who brought us the Torah, he's the headquarters. He's the general soul where all souls are plugged into for the level of intelligence. All of our holy intelligence comes from Moses. That's why he gave us the Torah. All of our drive to be driven to God with a madness that's beyond intelligence is rooted in the soul of Adam HaRishon. And then deeper than all of that is Moshiach's soul. Moshiach is Yechida, the highest level of soul. But the Rebbe explained earlier that that's still not the essence of, that's the way we always understood Moshiach. But the Rebbe revealed earlier that Moshiach is even deeper than that. Moshiach is the level of essence itself, which can't be called a level. It's just the core essence of all Jewish souls as it is rooted in the essence of God. And all of our spark of Moshiach is unified with that essence. That means that Moshiach is quintessentially unified with every single one of us. In other words, our connection to Moshiach is not something that comes from our mind. It's not something that comes from our emotions. It's not something that we connect him through our actions, through our observances. We are intrinsically one with him because he is intrinsically one with God. It's an intrinsic, and what Mashiach will bring is he will open us up to that level of consciousness, to that level of oneness. Okay? So that's what we learned earlier in the earlier classes. Based on that, the Rebbe says, we can understand how the spreading of Hasidism is the prelude to, is actually dissemination of Mashiach in the world. So he says, listen to this. This is a fine point, but amazing. He says, the second half of the verse that we're talking about is Ki berabim haya imadi. In the many, he was with me. So what does that mean? In the many is referring to, we said earlier it means when we pray together with a quorum. We spoke about that yesterday. Now there's a new interpretation. Berabim means while the Jewish people are still scattered amongst the entire world, while we're still in the diaspora, which means during the exile, when, and the words, the Rebbe borrows the term that says in Megillas Esther, it says, Mefuzar u'mefarad beina amim. Haman, when he wants to speak bad about Israel, he says, Yashno am echad, there is a people, a one nation, Mefuzar u'mefarad, that are scattered beina amim, between the nations. There is a nation that are scattered amongst the nations. Mefuzar u'mefarad beina amim. So what's the idea of this? So that means, so in that state, when Israel is still scattered across the entire world, we're still in Am Echad, we're still unified, because everybody knows that as the Jewish people are really a people of one, even when we're scattered. People care. We saw it after October 7th. Jews that were so isolated and alienated from their Judaism, but when they saw the horrors of what happened in a particular place to Jews, they could not stay calm, because the Jewish soul is really one soul, because we're connected to one God, and therefore we're a people of oneness. So we're really one, but there is an advantage, as we're going to see in a moment. Now, there are times when that oneness is, we're all going to, like after Mashiach comes, fully a manifest, Jews are going to come from all across the world. We're going to live in Israel. We're going to live in one place. But there is a certain advantage, the Rebbe is saying, right now, especially once Mashiach is revealed in the world already, which is now, and yet Jews are still scattered all over the world. So watch what the grazing thing is. Because in this state, we work like this. Berabim. Israel is still in a state of Rabim. They're all over the world. In every country, in every city, in every place. However, the fact that they are spread out and in the most distant, remote places in the world, here's the most important point. Haya imadi, they are with me, which means they still contain a spark, an antenna. They contain a connection. They have a Wi-Fi connection. They have a signal. And where is their signal? Which means they're sensitive still, no matter how far they are, no matter how removed they are. There is a place in their soul that never becomes un-Jewish. The Jewish spark at the core essence never gets destroyed. No matter how far, I don't mean only far in physical distance, how far you are from Jerusalem, how far you are from the headquarters of holiness, even if you're in the most far-flung country, even if in terms of a person's behavior, a person's worldview, a person's ideology, a person's philosophy, a person's lack of observance, complete disassociation from anything Jewish. There is always a Jewish signal deep in the subconscious. It's always there. And in that place, hear these magnificent words. The Rebbe says, Haya imadi, they are with me. Who is with me? Me over here is referring to Mashiach Tzidkenu. Every single Jew is linked up with Mashiach. There is a place in his soul that is one with Mashiach. And by being one with Mashiach, it's also one with God. Because who's Mashiach? Mashiach, as the Rebbe says, is the Yechida. He's the singular point, and who is etched and one with Yachid, with the singular God. And that's the significance of Birabim. Even when you are diffused and spread out everywhere to all four corners of the world, we can draw a line, a spiritual line. A wire is attached, an invisible wire, a net, like a massive net, which nets across the entire world. Every single place is all hooked up with Mashiach's neshama, which means two things: that the actions of every individual is sensed in Mashiach's soul. Mashiach senses every Jew, no matter where they are, and sends, if you might say, messages, subconscious, subtle messages into their soul to awaken the Mashiach spark inside of them. But what the Rebbe is saying is that the point over here is, this is the reality. Birabim, everywhere, no matter how far one is, they are connected with Mashiach. They're bound up. They still have a bond. They're still connected with the quintessential headquarters, which is Mashiach's soul. But that's step one. And step two, they take advantage of the fact that they're far and in the four corners of the world. In other words, we take advantage of that. And what is the advantage? Because we physically find ourselves, and maybe even mentally, emotionally, find ourselves far off in the four corners of the earth. But in essence, we're all linked up to the quintessential soul, which can never be severed, because on the level of essence, we can never be destroyed. So we're connected to Mashiach's soul. And then, through studying Mashiach's Torah, which is what? The teachings of Chasidus. Chasidusm is Mashiach's Torah, because Chasidusm is also just. So now we add one more thing into the mix. Okay, just like in souls there are these 5 levels of soul, so in Torah there are also these 5 levels of Torah. We know that Torah can be expounded on. Generally, is discussed in 4 levels. Pshat is the simple meaning of every part of Torah, which has a simple meaning. Then there's remez, which are like gematria, which means clues and hints. There's drush, which is like midrash interpretation. And finally, there is sod, which is Kabbalah, mysticism. These are 4 levels. And this corresponds to the nefesh of Torah, the ruach of Torah, the neshama of Torah, and the chaya of Torah. And finally, the 5th level of Torah, that's Hasidism. So Hasidism is the Yechida, that's Mashiach Torah. So here's what happens. Because everybody's soul is plugged into Mashiach, everybody's soul is plugged into Mashiach, in his essence. Yeah, good, so our souls are plugged in, but how do we, now our job is to take Mashiach's soul, who is the essence of all souls, and actually reveal it everywhere. How is it revealed everywhere? So through the fact that the souls who are living in America, those that are living no matter where you are in America, from the East Coast to the West Coast, across in all the countries, from Alaska to Maine, no matter where you are, or you're living in Australia, or in the Outer Banks, or South America, or in Africa, no matter where Jews are across the world, and especially Jews who study Torah, and especially Jews who study Hasidus. And that's amazing how the Rebbe did this. The Rebbe sent his students out. We all know Coca-Cola and Chabad is everywhere. Chabad are Hasidim or are connected to the Rebbe. So all Jews are connected to the quintessence soul. But those that are studying Hasidus, they're taking the essence of Torah, which is Mashiach's essence, and they are diffusing it everywhere through their souls, through the Torah that they teach. This level of Yechida is being revealed everywhere, which is the essence of God, which is Mashiach. Now, why is it that Torah is, so, put it this way, the fact that the souls are connected is not good enough, because souls are private. Souls is something that's inside your heart. How has it become revealed to the world? As I mentioned at the beginning of that class, of this yesterday's class, that's what the job of Torah is. the Jew who has the essential connection speaks Torah to the world. What's Torah? Torah is light. It's illumination. It's a sharing of ideas. But these are not regular ideas. These are divine ideas, not emanating just from the external levels of the divine, but they're emanating from the essence of the divine. And the Rebbe says that's the meaning of the word oraisa. Oraisa comes from the word, he brings from this, the origins of this teaching is from a talk from his father-in-law, from the previous Rebbe, in which he says that the word oraita, which is a Aramaic word for Torah, can be broken into two words. Or yesei, light will come. So, as a result of the Jewish people who are bound up with Moshiach's soul, and therefore are bound up with the essence of God. Now, while they are still berabim, again, this would not help, this would not work if Jews are all gathered in Israel. Because then even when they're studying Torah, they're only shining the light in Israel. So there's a certain advantage that's happening right now. It's already the time of Mashiach. Mashiach is already revealed. People that are plugged into Mashiach are plugged into that power source. And by studying Torah wherever they find themselves, they're able to make oraita, which means or yesei. They're able to bring Mashiach's light. And he explains that it means or yesei means the essence of the light itself. Yesei comes everywhere. And it adds even more that these teachings should not be taught in a cryptic language that no one understands. It shouldn't be spoken in Kabbalistic terminology because that no one understands. It needs to be spoken into all the languages. It needs to be spoken in the 70 languages. And that's why the word or yesei, which oraita, which means or yesei, the light will come, the word yesei is in Aramaic, implying that we're taking the or and we're putting it into a language that's not Hebrew. We're putting it into Aramaic. Now, Aramaic is a very interesting language. It says, I'm not sure what the source of it, maybe in the Zohar, that Aramaic is the medium. It's the mediator between Hebrew, the holy tongue, and all other languages. It serves as the transformer. So in order to be able to bring holy Torah into all the other languages, it first needed to be brought into Aramaic. That's why the Talmud was written in Aramaic. The Zohar is written in Aramaic. So you first need to take Torah, which is the pure light, translate it into first Aramaic, and then from Aramaic it can come into all the 70 languages. So when people teach Moshiach's Torah, which is the Torah of the essence, and the reason they're able to teach Mashiach's Torah, because no matter where they are, every Jew can teach Mashiach's Torah. Because no matter where they are, their souls are plugged into the essence. Our souls are plugged in, because that's the whole point. Ki berabim, even when they are in a state of multiple locations, and they're scattered across the entire world, they're still haya imadi. They're together with Mashiach Tzedkenu, with the righteous Mashiach. They are bound up with God, even if consciously they're not bound up with God, but in their essence they're bound up with God. And Mashiach doesn't give up on them, because on essence, the soul that's of divine substance can never be altered. It can never be changed. Can never, definitely not be destroyed. It can't be distinguished. It's not extinguished. It's not an extinguishable spark. Just like God is inextinguishable. So because of this essential connection, and then so this serves not only to keep the Jewish people alive in exile, but more than that they become powerful influencers. Influencing with what? Influencing through teaching Torah. That's good. Jews teach Torah all over the world is very, very good. But in Torah itself, it's 1,000,000 billion times stronger if we're teaching Hasidism. Because when we're teaching Hasidism, we're teaching the level of Torah that's Mashiach's. You're teaching Mashiach's language. That's why Mashiach said to the Baal Shem Tov, when these teachings will spread, I will come. This is my language. What's Mashiach's language? Mashiach's language is language of godliness. What's Hasidism? The language of godliness. It's teaching, but precisely to speak in the various different languages. I can only speak it in English, but I'm sure people listening to these classes can take it and translate it into French and into Spanish. And I know some people do listen and do give classes in different languages from what they hear over here. It's what we all need to be doing. We need to be spreading these teachings, or yesei, so that the light of Mashiach can actually come everywhere. So as we're going back to what we said yesterday, we've already finished using the Torah to fix the world. That's accomplished by the study of halacha, the more external part of Torah. That we've done throughout 2,000 years of exile, the yeshivas, all that study. We've done that already. That's finished. Now we have to move to a much deeper part of Torah and take the Hasidic teachings, because everything is waiting for Mashiach. Now we just have to bring Mashiach's light into every nook and cranny, into every alleyway, into every corner, into every home. Through what? Through the channels of the media, in which we can teach it everywhere, to everywhere, and local as well. People that find themselves birabim across the multitudes of nations in the entire world and all four corners of the world, by teaching Mashiach's teachings, and by being haya imadi, by all being plugged into the nucleus of it all, which is Mashiach. We diffuse this energy across the entire world, and that's how Mashiach reaches globally, everywhere and in every place. He adds in footnote 25 that the idea. So wait. So now we understand why ki berabim hayu imadi, that in the many they are with me. Why that's an explanation on pada b'shalem nafshi, on which means the redemption. The redemption of Chasidus is the redemption of Mashiach. Now we understand. Because the redemption of Chasidus and its ability to be diffused everywhere is the power to bring Mashiach across the entire world, which is Pada B'Shalom Nafshi, which is redeeming Mashiach. So, in other words, when you create amongst humanity, when you give people the tools, when you give people the understanding of what Mashiach is about, now Mashiach can reveal himself. Because Mashiach can come to the world so much more after people have a clue what he's all about. They'll understand his messaging. If Mashiach comes and no one has a clue, I'm sure he can get over that problem, because it'll take much more time, and it'll be difficult, and it won't be pleasant. So instead, what happens? We've been given these last 32 years to take these messaging, to teach and to teach. In today's days, you're seeing already that so many people, Jews and non-Jews alike, are actually beginning to listen to these mind-blowing ideas, are being to revolutionize their thinking. And this is creating the language. It's opening up the minds. It's opening the hearts for Mashiach to be able to fill. And if you're going to say, well, it's only a small percentage, well, we don't know how many people are listening exactly and to how many people it's affecting. And even if not everybody's listening, but when one person listens, they have a whole different understanding, and they introduce ideas into their circles of influence. And so it goes on and on and on and on, and it trickles down to impact millions of people. And this is the idea. So why ki berabim hayu imadi is an explanation on Pada B'Shalom Nafshi. Now we'll also understand, the Rebbe says, why this verse is in Psalm 55 in Psalms, because Psalm 55, the number 55 is Nun Hey, and Nun Hey, we learned, is very much connected to the redemption. As we say, Hein ga'alti eschem, behold, I have redeemed them. Hein is Nun Hey. Why? Because the sages tell us that there are two letters that don't have a partner. The Hey doesn't have a partner, and the Nun doesn't have a partner. If you go with the Aleph Beis, the Hebrew letters, each number has a partner. One, Aleph, which is 1, partners up with the 9. And Aleph and Tes together make 10. Beis, 2, partners up with Ches, with 8. 2 and 8 partner, and they make 10. In order to create the perfect number, which is 10, every number finds a partner to dance with. The Gimel will dance with the Zayin. When you bring the Gimel, number 3, with the Zayin, which is number 7, and you put them together, they have number 10. And so each one. The only one that doesn't have a partner is 5. Because who's going to partner up? He can only partner up with himself. 5 and 5, doesn't have a partner. Left in the middle, to become 10, only with a similar, but it doesn't, someone other than himself he can't partner with. And the same is also once we start with the higher numbers. We start with tens, and we want to create a complete number. Now, once you're holding in double digits, and a complete number would be triple digits, which would be 100. In order to create 100, so 10 combines with 90, and that's also a letter in the Halav base. Yud and Tzadik together create 100. And then Chaf, which is 20, and Pei, which is 80, combined together. And so the Ayin and the Lamed and the Samach and the Mem. The only one that's left without a partner is the Nun. So Nun doesn't have a partner, Hey doesn't have a partner. It's singular. So that's why it says, the Midrash says, that the Hey and the Nun, God says, I'm your partner. You have no other partner, because Hey and the Nun is referring to the Jewish people who don't have a partner in the world, which means they're the singular, they're the essence. On the deeper level, it means the level of soul that's called Yechida, that is alone, that can't partner up with anything else because it's the essence. Its only partner is God. So now we understand why this verse, Pada B'Shalom Nafshi, which is all about the dissemination of this essence, the essence of Torah, via the essence of the soul that reveals the essence of God, is in Psalm 55, which the number 55 is 50 plus 5, Nun and Hey together, which both of them symbolize the essence. That's what he explains over here. Now, he says all of this is especially emphasized in the 19th of Kislev of this year. Okay, now the Rebbe gave this talk in 1992. So he's now going to connect it. These ideas that he mentioned till now was applicable every year. The concepts were true. But now he says he always likes to zone into the particular time that we're in, how electrifying this time is. So he's going to do a bunch of explanations of why now. So he says, number one, this year's 19th of Kislev, the year 1992 was the same like it was in 1798, the first time that it happened. The 19th of Kislev fell out on a Tuesday. And if you remember in last episode, we discussed that the 19th of Kislev is celebrated 2 days, the 19th and the 20th, 2 days. So it was Tuesday and Wednesday. So he says this year, the year 1992, the 19th of Kislev also falls out the same like the first time. So it's, in general, when you have a holiday falling out, which comes out in the calendar to match and align itself completely with the first time that it happened, that means that the energies are flowing more directly, because there's no misalignment. The first time it happened on the Tuesday, this time it also was on a Tuesday. So there's a certain cosmic alignment which makes the energy more powerful. That's number one. And Tuesday and Wednesday in general are very good days in terms of this idea, because Tuesday, as we discussed earlier in the last episode, is the day that God said 2 times it's good. Tuesday is a very good day, because God said twice in creation good. And also he hung up the sun and the moon were created on Wednesday. And the whole idea that we discussed in the last episode was that the moon and the sun are both unified together, which means the moon is the same size like the sun in the Messianic times. That's hinted to on Wednesday. So the fact that it comes out on Tuesday and Wednesday is a very good sign. I'm not saying a sign, it's an empowerment. Another thing that comes out is, since the whole talk that we were explaining is the significance of the verse Pada B'Shalom Nafshi, which we said the Alter Rebbe said that verse in Tehillim when he was redeemed. We discussed about this yesterday, that when he was saying those words, that's when they notify him that he's free to go, when he was released. Now, why was the Alter Rebbe saying that Tehillim? We know it is a custom to say, you can say because he was saying Psalms because he was in trouble. You're supposed to say Psalms when you're in trouble. We say extra Tehillim. However, there is a certain allocation of Tehillim, section of Psalms that we say every day. It's a Hasidic custom. every day, not just Hasidic, many other people also do this. But it's divided that we say Psalms to be completed once a month. Every day of the month, you say another few chapters. Now, the 19th of Kislev, we start chapter 90. In the monthly Tehillim, we start chapter 90, not 55, where the verse Pada B'Shalim Nafshi is. So why was the Alter Rebbe saying that Tehillim if it wasn't part of his daily Tehillim? The answer is that it says that on the days when the Chabad Rabbeim were battling a certain darkness, when they were in a certain trouble, they would say extra Tehillim, and what they would do is they would also add Tehillim of the weekly cycle. What does that mean? That once a week you complete the entire book of Tehillim. That means you have to say much more every day. So when the year 1798, it was on a Tuesday, the Alter Rebbe was saying in addition to the Tehillim that belongs to the 19th day of the month, he was also saying another regimen of Tehillim, the Tehillim of Tuesday. Well, the verse, chapter 55, is part of Tuesday's Tehillim. So the Rebbe says, since this year, Yutes Kislev falls out on a Tuesday as well, there's a deeper connection this year to the Pada B'Shalim Nafshi, to this verse in Psalms, which connects the redemption of the Alter Rebbe to Moshiach's redemption. So therefore it highlights and strengthens the empowerment for Moshiach for the 19th of Kislev to activate the redemption. Now, he continues and he says that really we can add, this next piece is not applicable only to that year, 1992. This would be applicable to all years. He says really the 19th of Kislev's, the Tehillim, the verse Pada B'Shalem Nafshi, which is in Psalm 55, is really connected to the Tehillim, not just because of the days of the week, but also because of the days of the month. According to what we just said, its relationship is related to the day of the week, because it was Tuesday, and it's part of Tuesday's Psalms. But really, it's also connected to the 19th and the 20th. Why? It's an interesting connection. He says because if we are to look in the Tehillim, Psalm 55, in terms of the monthly divided Tehillim, the monthly allocation, which day do we say Psalm 55? It is said on the 10th day of the month, not on the 19th day of the month. On the 10th day of every month, we say Psalm 55. It's the first Psalm of the 10th day of the month. Okay. And the Rebbe says, in Hebrew, 10 is the letter Yud. Yud equals the number 10. Now, a Yud has hidden letters inside of it. Every letter has hidden letters. So inside a Yud, there is also Vav and a Dalet. Yud, Vav, Dalet. If you count the Vav and the Dalet together, the numbers that Vav and Dalet, they make another 10. Because Vav is 6 and Dalet is 4. So you have to look at three letters. Yud is 10, Vav is 6, and Dalet is 4. Together is 20. Comes out that the Tehillim we're saying on the 10th day is really connecting also to the 20th day. So although it's not connected so much to the 19th of Kislev, it's connected to the second day of the holiday, which is the 20th of Kislev. So the Psalms that we said on the 10th day of Kislev is still active, the Rebbe is saying, till the 20th. And actually, when it comes to the 20th, that's when it reaches that's when it's perfected. Because the perfection of the 10th day is in the 20th day. Because in the 10 is already concluded, includes another 10. So it's 20. So it has within it, so when it comes to the 20th day of Kislev, we're reactivating the Tehillim that we said on the 10th day. So therefore it's connected to the day of the month as well. Now the Rebbe says 20 is a very special number because 20 is connected to Moshiach. Adds an extra connection to Moshiach. Because 20 is hinted to with the letter Chaf, and Chaf is Keter. It's the first letter of the word Keter, which Keter means the crown. And in Hebrew, the number 20 is the word that denotes the number 20 is Esrim. Esrim, the numeric value of Esrim. Esrim actually means 20, but if you take the letters Ayin, Shin, Reish, Yud, Mem, and do the gematria, it equals 620, which 620 is the numeric value of Keter, which is crown. So the energy of number Esrim, of 20, is the energy of the Keter, the crown, symbolizing the very lofty level of God's crown, which is what Moshiach will attain. Moshiach will wear the crown of God, will have that lofty level of Keser. It's the Keser that Moshiach will wear. So it comes out that on the 20th of day, which highlights the power of Esrim, which is the power of Keser, connecting the Pada B'Shalom Nafshi that we said earlier to Mashiach's kingdom and to obviously God's crown, which is all to be manifest when Mashiach comes. Which the crown, the Rebbe says, adds to the beauty of the king, to the beauty of the kingship, which is the shleimus, the perfection of Malchus Beis David, which will come about through David Malka Meshlicha, and the shleimus of God's kingdom, the perfection of God's kingship. Now I have to say something. The next ideas that the Rebbe is going to be saying is a whole lot of small little pieces, which are all adding to make it like that he's throwing into the mix to kind of reveal how powerful the time is. So it's not going to be so, what we're saying now is not such a long, essential discussion, but rather a whole bunch of little points that and this is also here, and this is also, he's adding all the small little decorations to the cake right now. And what's even more primary, he says, this year's 19th of Kislev, regarding all other years. Till now, he said that the year 19th of Kislev this year is special because it fell out on Tuesday and Wednesday. But that happens other years as well. The question is, what was so special in 1992 individually? He says that this year, the 19th of Kislev, happens after the 89th year, which is the gematria, the numeric value of the word pada. What does that mean? The Rebbe makes it, in the next point, he makes it very personal to himself. He says, the Rebbe that year, the year the Rebbe was talking this talk, the Rebbe was 89 years old, which means he was within the 90th year. That means in Psalms, he was saying the 90th chapter, like we discussed many times, that it is a custom that every day one should say the psalm of corresponding to the year that they're in. So if you're 20 years old, from your 20th birthday to your 21st birthday, every day you should say Psalm 21. When you hit 21, you should start saying Psalm 22. So that year the Rebbe was saying Psalm number 90. The year before this, he was saying Psalm 89. Okay. So, watch. So again, so he says, this year, he says, we've completed already, we're holding after 89. This is only this year, 1992. We're completed the 89 chapters. Now, 89, he says, is the numeric value of the Hebrew word pada. Pada means redeemed, which is the first word of the whole verse that we're talking about. Pada b'shalem nafshi. So the Rebbe says, since we're holding in the year 89, we have already completed all the work that was needed to open up the locks that was blocking Mashiach from coming. Mashiach was blocked. Mashiach has obstacles. That the whole theme of what we're learning of him, Mashiach can't come. There were blockages. And in that, Mashiach has to come out of all the imprisonments, all the concealments, all the blockages. Pada means the redemption. You have redeemed. That's what. So the Rebbe says now we're holding after 89, even though the Rebbe was still 89. But in the Psalms, he was after 89. He says we're finished already with the whole Padiyah. We're done with the redemption already. With whatever is needed to redeem. So now Mashiach is free to come already, because we're done already. We're starting already chapter 90, which chapter 90 is already referring to post-Mashiach world, the world of implementing the third temple. That's already connected already to the full redemption. Because in Moshiach, there's two periods. There is the time that Moshiach suffers in the time of exile, and then there is the post-Moshiach revelation, the time of the third temple. So the Rebbe is saying we are already holding now after the Pada. And therefore, the 19th of Kislev this year, which the whole theme of 19th of Kislev is the Pada B'Shalem Nafshi, we're after the 89 years of Mashiach's hardship of Pada, and we are standing already in a place where we can already enter into the 90th year. So now there's no more obstacles for us to implement already the full Mashiach reality. Now, what's stunning over here, if you're paying attention, the Rebbe is throwing himself into the mix. And he's talking about his age. We finished the 89 years. What does it have to do with... So the Rebbe is clearly implying the concept that I've been saying all along through all these talks. The Rebbe was implying again and again and again. He's referencing back to himself when he said that Moshiach is here already. And he's ready to redeem. And within Moshiach's life, we're in a different stage now. We're in a stage where there's no more obstacles. Moshiach is already given... And he points to himself and where he is holding in the 90th year. That's very, very telling and very powerful. I thought I will finish, but I will conclude the class right over here. And the next class is literally just going to be a touch-up, very short, to conclude how else he says why this year's Yutas Kislev is such a special time, and therefore what are we supposed to do about it. We're going to leave that for one more part 3 in this episode. Thank you for joining. Let Mashiach be here today.